Welcome back to the post game brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. From the minor leagues to the major leagues, Arch City Sports has you covered all across the Missouri area. We're back. I'm Nick, along with Jeremy Karp and Andrew Manziera, talking a little sports. This is week 4. We're doing good so far on the podcast.
We're rolling.
Hope everybody likes listening so far. If you have any comments or suggestions on how we can do better, you can tweet at Arch City Sports or tweet us on our own Twitter handles, or give us a comment on the Facebook page, which is Arch City Sports. So, guys, lots to talk about today. We got a little Cardinals. We have some new Blues rumors regarding TJ Oshie. St. Louis FC played this weekend. U.S. Open Cup this past weekend. But first, we're going to start off with a topic coming out of Columbia, Missouri. Harold Brantley and Maddie Stock were involved in a serious car accident over the weekend. Jeremy, I think you have details on that.
Yes, I do, Nick. He is expected to make a full recovery after he lost control of his vehicle and crashed last Sunday. He suffered a fractured left tibia, ligament damage in his left knee, and multiple rib fractures. Now, Maddie Stock, who plays basketball at Mizzou, suffered only minor injuries, and she's, of course, expected to make a full recovery as well. According to reports, neither of them were wearing their seatbelts at the time of the car accident. And while they are both expected to make full recoveries, Mizzou has no sure clue when Mr. Brantley will play football, or if he will play football this year, because like you were telling me before the show, he suffered the same injury that basketball star Kevin Ware had suffered as well, and we all know the recovery time of an injury that severe.
Yeah.
And Andrew, I believe you also have something to add towards this type of accident.
Well, it's something you never want to hear on the news coming out anywhere that people were in a car accident, let alone wearing their seatbelts. So, want to remind everyone: click their ticket, folks. Always be safe.
Officer Andrew on the case. Now, in all seriousness, I did talk with TJ Moe yesterday, former Missouri wideout, and he was saying when he was talking to Coach Pinkel, Harold Brantley is one of these guys that's compared to Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah, they predict him to be a first-round pick in 2016. I mean, he's a top prospect for this team.
Yeah, he's on the defensive line. That's a strong defensive line there at Missouri.
For sure.
Coach Kuligowski has always built. And with Marcus Loud, defensive end, being dismissed from the team now, Brantley, we don't know when he's going to be coming back. This Missouri defensive line is certainly taking its hits. It obviously has some guys that are coming in that could be impact players, but some of these freshmen might get the opportunity to play right away, right off the bat.
And that will be good for the sake of them getting an early start and them working to have a more successful college career. But at the same time, it's sad that it happened, or very well could happen, under these types of circumstances. And we all, of course, wish Ms. Stock and Mr. Brantley the very best in their recoveries.
Yep. So, moving on to a different topic, more a topic that's really grabbing the attention of the St. Louis community lately and a lot of radio stations across the area, and that's TJ Oshie and what's going to happen with the Blue, the current Blue, probably going to end up being a former Blue. Tons of teams involved in trade discussions with TJ Oshie. The one that grabbed me last week was TJ Oshie and Rick Nash that we had talked about, and that's not gonna happen.
I seriously doubt that.
There's no way that's gonna happen.
There's a lot of factors that would lead into not making that trade an actual possibility.
One of the other ones was a rumor that TJ Oshie could go to the Pittsburgh Penguins, not for Evgeny Malkin, but for two lower guys. I can't recall who exactly was involved in those trades.
Well, one of the rumors was Bo Bennett, which is one of their young forwards, and then a defensive prospect. But honestly, I think almost every team, if not all teams in the NHL, would want a guy like TJ Oshie on their team. Now, as we've noted, and everyone has watched, he's not done well in the last few years of the playoffs. But I also saw another rumor where it was possibly rumored that the New York Islanders would be interested in him in a Kyle Okposo trade. And if you recall, Nick, the Islander forward suffered an eye injury, kept keeping him out 20-plus games. But he did record 51 points in 60 games last year. He's a big, physical, strong skater. He's pretty quick for his size, and I think you can possibly compare him to a player like Berglund. Now, as we know, Berglund is lacking in the point department. and the skill department, it seems. I think Okposo would be possibly a really good addition, maybe playing with Stastny or with Tarasenko and Schwartz, maybe if they move Laterra around. But I mean, we'll have to see. The draft's coming up in a few weeks. Or, sorry, this week. Gosh, we're already to the NHL.
Already
Gosh,
there.
time is flying
Not
by.
only football season isn't the only sport that's coming up quickly. You already have the NHL draft. The off season for these hockey teams is right there, right at the corner. So we'll see how these trades mesh with the NHL draft themselves.
Is there anybody out there that I'm not familiar with the NHL draft and some of those guys coming up? Is there a specific player that we should watch out for? Blues fans should watch out for heading into this draft?
I think it'll be interesting to see if the Blues trade up to get a first-round pick, because if you remember, their first-round pick was sent to the Buffalo Sabres as part of the Ryan Miller trade last season. So right now they have the second-round pick. It will be their first pick. It's number 56 overall. So, possible fits. I mean, they need to replenish that prospect depth. They've traded a few guys away, some guys that they've kind of counted on being NHL ready or are not there yet. Does Robbie Fabry make the team? Does Ratty and Yaskin make the team again? I don't know. But Brendan Gould out of Prince Albert playing in the WHL. He's a defenseman. He's a possible draft pick, as well as Adam Musil, a center also out of the WHL. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see if they trade up or be trading, possibly Oshie at the draft. But I think the bigger concern for the Blues is, obviously, I think we can all agree, is signing Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, that to me is the top priority for the St. Louis Blues right now. The second would be finding some consistency, finding some balance with the goalie situation. But top priority by far is having the one guy who really carried the team as far as he possibly could in the playoffs, and that is Vladimir Tarasenko.
I agree. I mean, if you don't sign him first, who else would you sign? Yeah. So I think that's got to be Armstrong's top priority.
Because he's the guy that you would balance the team around, really.
Right. And Jake Allen is a free agent, so I'm sure they'll cut a deal with him. I wouldn't expect it more than around $2.5 million, maybe $2.75. I don't think he's going to get paid more than Elliott's $2.5 million salary. I wouldn't think, but with Armstrong, as we've seen, you never know, and he makes moves that sometimes pay off and other times don't.
And this is going to be a good young team, like we've discussed before, that pretty much have to scrap what they have and start over, because what they had wasn't working. And like you said, Jeremy, build around Vladimir Tarasenko. That's priority number one. But it could make way for some of these good guys, some of these younger guys, to get an opportunity to play. Like you said, Yaskin and Ratty, who didn't play a whole lot last season. But Yaskin played well the one game I went to, he scored a goal. I mean, he had 13 goals and 5 assists in 54 games a season ago. So there's a lot of potential for these guys, and they do need to get younger. They need to get faster to be able to play with some of these tougher teams that have superstars. The Blues don't really have a developed superstar, with the exception of Vlad Tarasenko. And I think once they, depending on how they draft, what kind of moves they make to move some of these pieces around, they could end up building a young, fast, quick team. And Jake, like you said, Jake Allen as well. They've invested in Jake Allen as their goaltender. Mm-hmm. Brian Elliott, in my opinion, is probably going to leave and go elsewhere. I would if I were Brian Elliott. But they've invested in Jake Allen. They'll give him his contract. That's your goalie. And, they can move forward from there.
And it's a shame that the Ryan Miller trade that they made, where, of course, they gave up, as Andrew stated, the first-round pick to the Sabres, that it did not work out, because now the Blues are even in a tighter situation than they would have been in the first place, because now they have number 56 overall, so they really have to be careful with who they look at and say, okay, this is the type of guy that we can develop, have him work around the fold, and see how he could help our team in the future.
I don't honestly think that Brian Elliott's going to go anywhere. I think that he'll obviously stay put. He's probably going to be our starting goaltender, if I had to say, based on his... I mean, he's a career leader in shutouts for the entire organization. So I just don't see him being traded or going anywhere. I'm sure he's
You don't think he's
obviously
bad,
upset.
though? Yeah, I mean, I'd be pissed if they brought in Martin Brodeur out of retirement over Brian Elliott to play in net. I mean, granted, Elliott was a little banged up and wasn't, playing so hot, but even if you're not playing hot, they still got to give him the opportunity to play.
Shows,
when they passed over on him, what does that tell him?
See, it shows if you're in the mindset of Brian Elliott. Obviously, we can't think of the mindset of Brian Elliott, but like you were saying, Nick, that you would be mad in that type of situation. And a lot of people think, okay, well, Brian Elliott's pretty mad that they brought this guy who will be in the Hall of Fame out of retirement just to start and goal over him. That means that it would be that you aren't trusted enough to be behind the net. Be that guy that the Blues need between the net. But at the same time, Brian Elliott is a valuable part of this team that could really be a help. Because you don't want to bring in another goalie and just keep switching between Jake Allen and another goalie.
Well, then you're basically saying that you're ditching out on Jake Allen. You're not giving him the opportunity that he deserves, and you can't have this. You can't have two goalies. You can't have it. Though both guys have the potential to be a starting goalie on different teams. So at the end of the day, you got to pick one or the other.
Well, and I think bringing in Brodeur wasn't just to pass Brian Elliott up. Like you said, we have a young team, inexperienced, somewhat in the playoffs, and having a future Hall of Famer, like you said, Jeremy, in the room, just talking to these guys, just trying to get a feel for them, and to have that kind of mentality of, wow, this guy, we have a Hall of Famer in our locker room right now, and just giving those players the insights and just the lessons about pacing yourself in the season and not selling out in the regular season and then falling short in the first round of the postseason. So, Brodeur came in, and I'm glad he's going to stay with the staff.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. He'll be like a mentor to the Blues, kind of like how Yadier Molina would be a mentor to younger catchers in the future. Martin Brodeur is up in the He's up in the front office position, but he's still within the organization to help out whoever's in goal.
No, I think that's fine. They shouldn't have brought him in as a to-play. You can bring him in as a front office guy, but I think the Blues bringing him to play doesn't send the right message to the goalies on the team at the time. And then,
and if
come playoff time, it certainly, didn't help out because then they couldn't decide if they wanted Jake Allen or Brian Elliott.
I think they started to enter panic mode when the playoffs arrived because they were at the point where, we've had issues getting out of the first round of the playoffs all these years, and one game goes bad. Okay, now we got to try another game. Next game goes bad. Okay, we got to see if the first one can do good again. But that is not how a good hockey team is run. You invest in a guy, you have one player, and you keep pushing him. You keep going to see how far he can help take the team. And only when you're for sure that he cannot be that guy do you put in the next person to see if he can step up.
You're listening to the post game brought to you by ArtShittySports.com. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking some Cardinals and as well as some U.S. Open. Jordan Spieth, the victor. Talk about Dustin Johnson's fall there on the 18th hole. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the post game brought to you by ArtShittySports.com. From the minor leagues to the major leagues, Art Shitty Sports has you covered all across the Missouri area. As always, if you'd like to get involved, tweet at us at ArtShittySports or give us a like on Facebook at ArtShittySports. If you'd like to advertise with this podcast or on our website, you can email micklight, MICKLITE, at gmail.com, mick.light@gmail.com. So, guys, we talked a little Blues in the last segment. Now we'll get to what everybody's favorite topic is.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Cardinals, they open a 3-game series tonight with the Marlins. Jose Urena on the mound for the Marlins, and Carlos Martinez 7-3 with 2.8 ERA going for the Redbirds.
I like the 1-2 punch they've had lately with Wacha, even though he did bad in his last start. But Wacha and Martinez, the good 1-2 punch of young stars.
Let's hope the offense is out and about tonight. Playing Miami, who's 30-41, 11 games under 500. This is like Philadelphia. This is a series that they should be able to go out there and win. In those 2 games we saw in Philadelphia, they put up 22 runs in the first 2 games. The first two games, that they won. Lost the third one when they only put up 2 runs. It seems like kind of an up and down thing. In that Twin series, they only had a total of 11 runs, and then they go out and put up 22 runs, and then back to 2 runs the next day. So,
let me ask you this: you think the Cardinals played our podcast in the locker room?
I think they must have.
I would hope.
I can't think of anything
else. Let's see. What was it on? I think it was on Thursday that we criticized them. I think it was 6-18. Yeah, Thursday. They lose 2-1 to the Twins. Excuse me. And they go next 2 days they go to Philadelphia, put up 22 runs. They must be listening. Jason Hayward, Colton Wong. You think those guys like the
Jason
old post
Hayward,
game?
We're making a difference.
Think they should think they follow Archie Sports? I don't think they do. They should. And you guys should too. Everybody should
probably don't. They probably don't even know who we are.
I don't think we have. I'm not sure. Do we have any famous people following Archie Sports?
I'm sure we don't.
Probably not. We're not that great. Bunch of schmucks, bunch of college kids.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're talking about. But nonetheless, how do you think the Cardinals fare in Miami? You think they go out and are able to get a sweep? And what do you think the keys to a victory against Miami is?
Number one key, and for those that really follow Major League Baseball, I think this should come as no surprise. Stop Stanton. Stanton is
no kidding. The one good player on their team. Man,
exactly. You stop Stanton.
That is.
I mean,
wow.
And it's not to say there's no other talented players on the Marlins, but they invested.
That is Jeremy stating the absolute obvious. Stop Giancarlo Stanton.
I mean,
thank you for that.
Exactly.
That great piece of advice.
There.
Okay.
Any other advice? Because that basically sums up the advice on this series.
That's all the Marlins. That's all the Marlins have to do.
Well, with the contract they gave him, how much they're investing, it practically is the franchise. So
they got him $325 million. What were they thinking when they signed Giancarlo Stanton to $325 million over 13 years? I think it was 13 years, $325 million. That's absolutely asinine. You are shooting yourself in the foot. Not only does the general manager make himself the manager of the team,
which is really a botch in itself.
They're 0 for 2 this year on smart baseball moves if they want to somehow make their team a successful franchise. After that, they had the whole reimage thing, moved to Miami, got all those guys in there, Hanley Ramirez and Mark Burley and the likes, and then they trade them all away, and now they're starting back from square one. They got Jose Fernandez, who's on the DL, and Giancarlo Stanton. Those two guys. Outside of that,
and believe it or not the National League East is not, it's not an easy division. There are competitive teams and a lot of competitive players in that division.
I mean,
so you got to invest in more than just one player.
The Mets or the Nationals will take that division, and they have a tough.
They'll be duking it out the rest of the season. I bet.
Absolutely. At least the Marlins need to start over from square one, and maybe in a similar situation the Cubs did. The Pirates and the Cardinals are obviously the top dogs of the NL Central, but the Cubs, I mean, they were able to figure
Chris
it
Bryant
out.
hit 2 home runs a couple.
They were able to figure out, get some young guys in their system,
and
move their team back to a respectable franchise. And Cardinals have the Cubs back in town following this Marlins series for a nice.
Be a big homestand for them, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's no surprise, obviously, the Marlins are struggling. I mean, D. Gordon leads the team in at bats, and he's surprisingly doing really well. He's batting .356. Next is Stanton with just over 260 at-bats, only batting .260. So, I mean, when you can get guys at-bats, you do better. When guys don't get at-bats, they get hurt. When they don't know who's going to be putting the manager sweater on, that's a problem. But, other teams in the NL East, like you said, Jeremy, the Nationals are doing really well. Max Scherzer with a real gem the other day.
Yeah, you were
broken up by a leaning in Jose Tabata.
Tabata.
He's mad enough. He doesn't even want to say the name right.
You wrote a great article that you can find on archiesports.com. All our online content's great. We like to write. A lot of people like to write. Whether you agree with it or not, that's regardless. Leave your comments on those articles. We always appreciate the followers. But yeah, you wrote an article about the unwritten rules of baseball. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it just after I saw that game and the act of the Pirate player, it's like, what are you doing? That's awful. And that's just frankly unacceptable. If a guy is throwing a no-hitter, more or less a perfect game, don't lean into a pitch with 2 outs. And let me say this: I get if you're a Pirates fan, I totally understand if you're like, hey, you know what? I'll do anything to get on base, break up this perfect game. As long as it's not thrown against me, that's fine. I don't care. As long as I'm not the last person up and he completes his perfect game or he completes his no-hitter, that's fine. But to have the mindset of going up there after a guy has shut you down all day long and lean into a pitch, that's classless. Classless. That's why he was in AAA for the better part of last year after he got his big contract. And it goes into more and more things. I mean, a lot of people gave me gruff about bunting with the shift on. And I want to ask your guys' thoughts. Because clearly no one likes me and my thoughts, which is fine. But, I will say this. In the first, if it's the first 5 innings of a game, and let's say for the Cardinals, let's put this into perspective here. Matt Adams isn't hurt. Matt Adams is up. It's a 1-0 game. Cardinals are down 1-0. It's the 5th inning. The shift is on. What do you want to see? Do you want to see Matt Adams put one over the Cardinals bullpen in right field?
Yeah.
Or do you want to see him possibly lay down a bunt down the third baseline? What do you guys want to see?
No, obviously over the bullpen.
I mean, yeah, I understand your theory here of trying to bunt with the shift on, but say, let me go against that and say, what if the bunt is unsuccessful?
I totally agree. Pitchers are athletes. Those guys contort every part of their body.
They have just as great reflexes as the players that are not on the mound.
Right.
It's a high risk, high reward situation. If it works, everybody will praise the manager and be like, "Oh yeah, you did a great thing." If he doesn't, he'd be like, "Oh, you're an idiot. Why are you bunting with Matt Adams, a left-handed power hitter,
right,
trying to bunt down third baseline?"
And I get he's lost weight. He's not the slowest guy on the team, but
Yadier Molina forever and always will be the slowest guy on the St. Louis Cardinals.
But Nick, like you said, I mean, if you're a pitcher and okay, I've got my third baseman playing shortstop or just over the second base bag. I've got my second baseman basically playing right field. The right side to me is open. The left side to the hitter's open. Yeah, he might lay one down. Okay, I'm ready for that. I'm also ready to pitch him down and in because I have everyone behind me shifting. So pitchers and catchers think of that.
I think that would only work one time if you're taking them by surprise, because then they're going to be expecting that.
Sure.
So if you're going to take them by surprise, like on the first or maybe not the first pitch, but the second or third pitch, yeah, I would do it then. But I think you only have one try to do it, and if you say you foul one off, I don't think you do that one again.
Right. And if you have thoughts on this or any other more unwritten rules, you can tweet me at I'm the Manziera, or you can tweet at Arch City Sports. Share your thoughts with me and the other writers. We would love to hear them.
That's my job, Andrew. I'm supposed to be the one running point. You're trying to get your Twitter plug in there?
I only...
Do you not have enough followers?
I only fill in the jobs.
I'm just giving you crap.
I only fill in the jobs that I think I need to do pretty bad.
So. Yeah, I had to do my first commercial today on the working over at CBS Sports.
Wow, am I allowed to sit this close to you? Am I allowed to sit in the same room?
They let me do a commercial. That's probably a bad idea.
Well, while you two are going on a social media argument, I think there is another Cardinal subject that we do, and that a lot of people really want to talk about, and we should do the same. It's Pete Kozma. And he's been on the team for many years.
Open this can of worms. Everybody's going to be on.
Yeah. But the question is, should he even be on the team right now? Should he?
Okay.
It's tough, though, because Pete Kozma is out of options. So you can't send him to AAA anymore. You either have to release him or keep him on the field.
Well, this is the thing. He's played in 31 games this season, and in any of them, he hasn't had much of an impact. His batting average is .093. He has 5 hits and 54 at-bats. 5 hits and 54 at-bats. He scored 6 runs, and he struck out 17 times.
He's not struggling.
We can jump on the Pete Kozma. I know a lot of people are going to be bashing Pete Kozma. Before everybody gets to the bashing, this guy's worked his tail off. He's been up and down in the mire, not complaining.
He played 143 games.
Knows his role on the team. But being up with the big club, yeah, he's coming off the bench, a bench that's very thin for the Cardinals. But yeah, you're right. You can't be batting .093.
Right.
I mean, you have to be able to hit the ball. That's usually what the downfall is of most athletes, baseball players. We saw with Jason Mott why they made him was part of the reason they converted him from a catcher to a pitcher was because he wasn't hitting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And
boys Michael Wacha and Carlos Martinez have higher batting averages than Pete Kozma.
That's not
okay.
good.
Well, in Carlos Martinez's defense,
Carlos Martinez is batting well. I mean,
he knows what it's like to be in his position. So,
but Pete Kozma plays great defense, and the Cardinals.
He's an emergency catcher.
The Cardinals, the emergency catcher doesn't make a difference because they were carrying 3 catchers there for a while with Ed Easley. I don't know why. Finally, they decided to put him down.
Okay, I'll say it to more relatable terms. Tony Cruz, 49 ABs, batting Sorry, I lost it. 204.
Get your stats right. Come on. But Pete Cosmo basically.
The computer screen's hard to read. All right.
It is. Your eyes are getting old. Your eyes are getting older. But the statistics, don't lie. Pete Cosmo's defense, though, is the reason that he is on the big club. It's the reason that he's on the team. They had to make a decision between Daniel Descalso or Pete Cosmo. Descalso went to Colorado. He's not playing that well in Colorado either. But I mean, it's apples and oranges. It's pretty much the same thing when you look at it now.
Are you saying these guys are a couple fruits?
No.
Come on.
No, I'm saying they're bench players, and it doesn't really matter because Pete Cosmo's not playing every day. Everybody's complaining about Pete Cosmo because he's getting more at bats right now because the Cardinals' bench is so thin, and they haven't gone out and got a bat, which they'll do at the deadline, and then everybody will forget about it. The only reason Pete Cosmo is people are complaining is because Pete Cosmo is getting more at bats than he deserves right now, and that's only because guys need off days. The 9 in the field can't play every single day.
I'll say this, though. It's nice seeing players, upcoming guys such as Greg Garcia and Xavier Scruggs getting more at-bats as well.
Xavier Scruggs. No one ever says it right. People say the college Xavier is Xavier. Xavier. Hey,
Are we in a sports podcast or a grammar school lesson? For crying out loud.
I get in trouble for these things. If you mispronounce a name,
That's why we're a low-level podcast, okay?
I'm trying to get us from the low-level podcast to the high-level podcast.
Yes, Father.
Back on topic, though. You're talking about Xavier Scruggs.
Yeah. And just saying how him being up in the big league club, especially during this last series against the Phillies, he showed some pop, he showed some ability, and obviously he's been hyped up a lot from the minor leagues. And eventually, I don't see Cosmo lasting much longer on this big league roster just because we have guys like Scruggs and Garcia working their way up. And there's plenty more, obviously. You know how deep our minor league system is. Guys as far down as single A will, in years to come, will be working their way up. So, honestly, is defense to you exactly the appeal that keeps Pete Cosmo on this Cardinals roster?
If it was, there wasn't defense, he wouldn't be on the roster.
Well, sure, yeah. But that's the thing is, if you can have 8 other guys hitting decently, then yeah, you can keep him on because he's not a liability. But when you start having these Cardinal droughts, and like we said, 6 runs for 2 or 3 games, and you just can't have that and be a winning ball club. So when guys are hitting, like when we against the Phillies scoring 22 runs in those few games, sure, no, everyone forgets about it. Oh, Cardinals are winning, that's fine. I don't hate anyone on the team. Well, now the Cardinals are losing 9-2. Man, I hate Cosmo.
Yeah, find a reason. What's the X factor here that's making the Cardinals? Oh, it's Pete Cosmo. No, it's not Pete Cosmo. It's the Cardinals' offense isn't producing. Pete Cosmo is not the reason the Cardinals are losing games right now. Right. It's because they don't have the offense. You win as a team, you lose as a team. Don't go out and start bashing certain players because they're not hitting. Player makes an error, all of a sudden, boom, worst player in the world. And then go out and hit a home run, everybody forgets about it. You gotta have the downs to have the ups because if you don't have the failures, it doesn't make the successes as sweet. And
exactly.
I do want to touch on Scruggs before we take another break. He plays first base. We have another first baseman up on the roster, splitting time with Reynolds. If Scruggs can keep his production high and keep hitting well, is that something you think Mozeliak is going to really value and possibly not go get a first baseman at the deadline? Or do you think that regardless of how Scruggs does, Mozeliak's already made up his mind he's going to go get one?
I feel like they're going to stick with – if Scruggs does prove himself to where Mozeliak does see something in him, then I think Mozeliak won't go get somebody at the deadline because obviously we've talked about countless times how Reynolds is a good first baseman but a hit or miss at the plate.
Sure.
But how Scruggs has so much untapped potential in him, and if some of that can come out as the coming weeks press on, then there will be no need to invest on what could be a short-term fill-in at first base.
And I do agree with that point. I think a lot of Cardinals fans aren't giving Mark Reynolds the credit that he deserves, that he is a good first baseman. Everybody only wants more. They just see
they only know him for hitting home runs and striking.
Yeah, they know what his history is, and they're all even though they have Reynolds on the team, like, oh, what's the next best thing out there? We want that. But I do think Scruggs would have to hit on a very consistent basis for Mozeliak not to go out and try and find a different bat. I talked about last week. I don't think he's going to do that until we see what the prognosis on Holiday is, on when Holiday is going to return, and that could be, currently the status on Holiday. I know a lot of people have been asking about this on the Twitter page and on the Facebook page. Right now, the status of Holiday is he's going to be coming back sometime after the All-Star break.
They don't want to rush it, which is fine.
And that's acceptable. But I don't think that's going to keep Mozeliak at the end of the day from going out and getting a bat, because even when Holiday comes back, Matt Adams is still out. Mark Reynolds is your everyday first baseman, and what it comes down to is the Cardinals still need a pop bat off the bench for late innings if they want to be able to win in the playoffs, because the pitching has been phenomenal. You get Lance Lynn back on Thursday, and so your rotation is fine. Your rotation's good.
Your rotation's really set.
Probably still going to need an innings eater pitcher, kind of like a Lynn or a Lackey, to come in and help out this club to minimize Martinez and Waka's innings. But I still think they're going to go out and get a bat regardless of how Scruggs plays.
And really, Reynolds has played in 61 games. People like Peralta, Molina, Carpenter, 68 games, 63 games, 64 games. So he's getting his time to shine. And like you said, Jeremy, he's very hit or miss. And Nick, I do agree. I think a lot of people don't give him credit. But as we talked last podcast, I think we're all Mark Reynolds fans. I think he's doing a great job going into the season, having that mindset of I want to be a backup to a probably almost every day starting first baseman. And now I've got to all of a sudden change my mindset and routines and kind of my game plan. And now I'm playing first base every day. So I think, like you said, I think he's doing a great job. But we will have to see what Mozeliak does come trade deadline time.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking U.S. Open golf, Jordan Spieth and Dustin Johnson, as well as St. Louis FC. Got a big game coming up this weekend at Worldwide Technology Park. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the post game, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. From the minor leagues to the major leagues, Arch City Sports has you covered all across the Missouri area. Before, with the break, we were talking a little Cardinals, went over some Rams, but this past weekend, definitely have to get into it. We haven't talked about it yet. Is U.S. Open golf. Jordan Spieth is halfway home to the Grand Slam title. That's winning all 4 major U.S. Opens in the same year, but he did not do so without some drama. He had a 2-shot lead going into on the 17th hole before he double bogeyed, which opened the door for Dustin Johnson to come in and tie.
And if he hit an eagle, he would have won.
If he hit an eagle, he would have won because he had a 2-shot lead, and then he had a 1-shot lead after Spieth did after he birdied 18. Dustin Johnson had a putt for eagle, and 3 putts it for par. Probably like you said, Andrew, before the break, worst par in his entire golfing career in his eyes. Loses the U.S. Open. What are you guys' thoughts on this tournament?
I mean, it was very dramatic at the end. Overall, it was entertaining especially for golf aficionados, especially. But it is a shame how Dustin Johnson ended up with his worst career. I mean, how it ended at the U.S. Open with Jordan Spieth. Yeah. Nick?
I don't know. I'm a big fan of Jordan Spieth. I wanted him to win.
My boy!
You wanted to win all along.
He's my boy.
Wanted him to win all. How can you not root for this guy?
Yeah, he's just very talented and skilled. And like you said, he's halfway home to winning that Grand Slam.
He's made $7 million.
What are we
this year?
What are we doing with our lives?
It's unbelievable to me.
We have to reevaluate. One of my buddies, good buddies, actually was paired with Jordan in a regional tournament.
Really?
A few years back before he got big. And he told me back a few years ago, before Jordan ever came onto the PGA Tour, that Jordan Spieth would be the next biggest thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure he's good at golf or whatever. And lo and behold, here he is, Masters champion, U.S. Open champion.
It's a big accomplishment
But Dustin Johnson, man, you had it. You had
it was in his grasp, and
12-foot putt. 12-foot putt, and he would have been for Eagle, and he would have been a U.S. Open champion.
And
just goes to show you the nerves that it takes.
Yeah, golf's not obviously it's physical sports such as football or hockey, and it doesn't have the classics as such as baseball. But at the same time, there is still adrenaline pumping in the veins of those athletes when they're on the course. And on the 18th, you just see Dustin Johnson. He has it right there for him, that opportunity of a lifetime, and he just couldn't capitalize. Your thoughts, Andrew?
Oh, that course was so tough. I mean, those guys were just. You miss a fairway by 10 yards, and you're down the hill. You miss a green by 2 yards going up the hill, you're off the green. I mean, you're rolling 30 yards off the green.
It was a links course, like they have over there.
It was right there.
Over there in Scotland. Not a very aesthetically pleasing course, although that's how the links courses are.
Right. It's just, I mean, so as Jeremy, you said, you can imagine at the end of the weekend, after playing this tough course, all those days, Jason Day passing out from the heat and his vertigo issues, Dustin Johnson battling all weekend, being 3.5 feet away from more or less forcing a tie for a playoff to be played on Monday. And
I was really looking forward to that 18-hole playoff.
Right,
that would have been really entertaining.
The 3.5-foot putt. So I will say, the next time I make a 4-foot putt, I'm going to give myself a huge fist bump because I know
that you did what Justin Johnson couldn't.
That's right. You're exactly right.
But you will never be playing on the U.S. Open or under that pressure.
Not with that attitude.
Do they come out? They come out.
He still has time.
They come out to your putt matches, and
there's got to be a Waterbury type Open around here, don't you think?
I would think.
I mean, like I stated last week's podcast, as long as you can see a video of the Clayton Kershaw curveball, fastball, slider, what have you, I'm sure I could hit it. Probably not.
Don't even open that can of worms. We're gonna move on from the golf course to the soccer pitch. Talk a little St. Louis FC. They lose 1-0 to the Colorado Switchbacks last Friday night. This Saturday, though, they're going to be taking on New York Red Bulls Dos. Not New York Red Bulls. New York Red Bulls Dos. 2.
Just say 2. New York Red Bulls 2.
I'm doing like the Miami Heat, Miami Heat guy, the announcer. Dos. No, I took some Spanish all through grade school and high school.
Well, I took Spanish too, but
St. Louis FC, they're going to be they're going to take on New York Red Bulls 2.
Thank you.
And look for a winner, Andrew. What can we expect from the St. Louis FC squad, who has really good defense but really struggling to score some goals?
Well, I think Nick, you said it right. You nailed it right on the head. That they are so defensively sound, letting in I think less than 4 goals their last 4 matches, and I mean that really speaks volumes, especially to a team that has come so far in their inaugural season, starting in February, and just kind of trying to gel as a team and really create some chemistry. And I think defensively that's hard to do because you don't know who you can count on and you don't know guys' skill levels when you first come in. But they just haven't been scoring, and I can't seem to picture what it is. They've had a slew of injuries lately. Their captain, James Musa, is still practicing lightly in a walking boot. Mike Roach is out with a lower body injury. Sam Fink actually took a rest day today because he's logged every minute of the past 4 games in 13 days. But the St. Louis FC had a reserve match today. Brian Gall, Jordan Roberts, Nick Bibbs, Oscar Gasecki all played in that game just to get some more reps. Gall, if you remember, did not play in the Sporting Kansas City game. He got a red card in the Minnesota United game, making him ineligible to play in that U.S. Open Cup game. But I think moving forward, like you said, they're very sound defensively, so it's just all about creating that scoring chance early. I think if they can get up early, which they haven't been able to do all year, getting up early, holding the lead, and not having to just always play down a goal or trying to always battle back. Because as you know, that's so tough to do in sports.
Yeah.
That was it the Minnesota United game? That was the 1-1 game? What was it? Who did they play the week before that? Was it Louisville?
Yes.
I think that they tied.
Yes.
Yeah, they tied 3-3.
Yeah.
Tied 3-3. Yeah, and that game, that was a game where we saw St. Louis go up against a tough Louisville squad who they've had a tough time playing all year long. The Coopers put out a great 11 every time they play, and St. Louis was ahead that entire game. They went up 1-0, tied it back, 2-1, tied it back, and then 3-2, and then Louisville tied it back and ended up being a draw. So we've seen flashes of this offense show up, and obviously having Brian Gall back in the lineup will certainly help them. That was a huge blow. If they had Brian Gall in that Sporting Kansas City game, they may have had a chance at winning. Not saying they would have won that game, but they may have had a better chance. Not having your top goal scorer in there was hard. So moving forward to Saturday's game, it'll be about, like you said, creating chances, getting that opportunity to get out there and get a lead early, because once they have a lead, they can hold a lead. Mark Pace has been doing great in goal for St. Louis, so it's kind of a matter of time, I think, before they start breaking through and seeing some of these guys score goals. Obviously, the injuries are causing them to have to put in some of their younger guys, some of their reserves, but even those guys are stepping up. So,
yeah, they really are. Guys like Nick Bibbs that haven't gotten to play a lot all season. Peter Kelly had a great game last game for St. Louis. Parker Marr is really becoming a really sound defensive presence. I think he's improved a lot. But the Red Bulls are currently they're okay. They're not the superstar of the East. They're certainly not the worst. But I think they're coming in. They're facing St. Louis at a good time for them because, as I said, St. Louis is kind of battling that injury bug and trying to find consistent play from the offensive side of the ball. But it seems like they're getting a lot of chances. They just can't finish. And when they do get chances, it seems they just kind of squander them. Headers over the bar. Patrick Duty putting in great corners consistently. So, like I said, I think if they can go up early, I think if they don't have to battle back all game, I think that helps. But also, you can't let a goal in early. And that's what happened in their last game with Colorado, is that they let in that goal in the 16th minute, a harmless shot from outside the 18, and the midfielder he buried it, bottom corner. Kahn didn't even see it, or Alec Kahn didn't even see it. And like I said, battling back all game, I think that's tough, especially with this team, with the way they are. They have trouble pushing the pace. They have trouble creating chances early in the game. I think they're a very good second half team. I don't think anyone will disagree. They battle hard all second
they're
half.
They're very competitive.
Mm-hmm. And even in the last game, they had a chance on St. Louis FC's Instagram. There's a video from behind the net, and that is from the corner. Patrick Duty sent one in. Jacob Bouchou, defender, headed the ball in. Switchback goalie, made the save, and that was full time. So they're battling till the end. They're not quitting. And I think once it clicks, it just is that little fine-tuning. I think they're going to have a lot of success.
All right. If you have not been to a game, you should certainly go out to the park, Worldwide Technology Park, this Saturday, 7:30. St. Louligans will be out there. They'll be screaming. It's a great time. The atmosphere is unreal. St. Louis FC has one of the best fan bases in soccer. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Post Game. As always, if you would like to comment, have a question for us to answer, do so by commenting on our Facebook page, Arch City Sports, or at our Twitter handle, at Arch City Sports. You can follow me at Nick Yale, Jeremy Karp at JCarpSportsFan1, and at Andrew. I'm the Manziera. For Jeremy, for Andrew, I'm Nick. We will see you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Adios.